Hi, I'm Paul Winn, and you're tuned in to Head On, a show about events and activities that take place in Nanaimo and on Vancouver Island. And today with us we have Superintendent Mark Fisher of the Nanaimo RCMP, and we're going to have a really interesting topic of discussion today. Welcome, Mark.
Thanks, Paul.
Yeah. So, maybe you could give me an idea of the kind of things that the RCMP do in Nanaimo, the kind of jobs
Sure.
that they take on.
Okay, so we have quite a large detachment, well, the largest RCMP detachment on Vancouver Island in Nanaimo here. So a significant amount of work that we do is focused obviously on preventing crime and response to offenses that happen in the community. So criminal code type investigations, assaults, sex assaults, traffic accidents, traffic enforcement. And then we have another side of our operation, our detachment, that is focused more on the engagement in the community, the proactive and crime prevention work, and that would be our school liaison unit. We have a large bike patrol that does a ton of work in the downtown core, both with the licensed liquor establishments, with the business association, and also a lot of work on the social development front in town, working with homeless issues in the downtown core, street disorder, and initiatives looking at building a healthy community. Those two units. We also have a traffic unit that does traffic enforcement, traffic education in the community. As well, we have 4 police dogs in Nanaimo, which is a large amount. Yeah.
I've not seen them.
So they're here. We usually have a dog on shift every day, which is a huge advantage for the community as far as enhancing community safety. They do a lot of work in the schools too, educating kids, and a lot of training in the community. We have a full forensic ident unit and an actual ident office with some of the lab type equipment that you would see, a laser, and they respond not only to our area but also to the Duncan area, Ladysmith as well. Okay. But they're based in Nanaimo. Which is a huge advantage for us in response to crime scenes and the level of expertise we're able to bring.
You're in the middle of the stream here in Nanaimo.
Yeah, we are. We're the hub. Yeah. Hub city, as we're known, and as I said, largest detachment. So we have a lot of the services available that many of the smaller detachments don't, and we're fortunate to have them in our backyard, as I said.
How many members do you have on the force here?
We have an authorization for just under 150.
Wow. Yeah, that is a large number.
So yeah, it's a large operation to run, and then we have about 67 municipal employees who provide support services that are funded by the city of Nanaimo.
They're non-force members.
They're non-force members, but they provide a lot of our support in the background as far as supporting the operations, the fleet, a lot of the administrative duties associated to preparing statements and disclosure and work like that they do in regards to helping us do our jobs.
Yeah. Something that I had an occasion to go through myself when they had the summer games here for the youth was it the criminal investigation where you have to go in and check because you can't work with young kids.
Criminal record checks.
Yeah,
yes,
record checks.
Yes.
I mean, how many of those do you get? Do you think?
I don't know off the top of my head how many we get. Yeah. But it's a significant portion of the front counter work that our support staff do. Yeah. And in recent years, I think there's been a lot more awareness around the importance of getting criminal record checks for those, particularly for those that deal with youth or vulnerable persons in the community. Yeah. So we, as a result of some of the changes in guidelines for many organizations and also for government, we have seen a huge increase in demand in that area of our work as far as the number of those applications we have to process in a year. And you see now in the past, sometimes organizations or sports teams, coaches and that, would get these checks, say, once every 5 years. Yeah. So if you had a check for an organization and it was deemed suitable at that point in time, the day of the check, a lot of organizations would say, well, we're fine with that for the next 5 years and don't worry about it, go back 5 years later.
If you don't change personnel.
But now there's been a change of foot there as well, whereas now we're seeing a lot of the majority of the organizations are looking at that as a requirement that they need it renewed every year because things change.
Yes,
I could be a great guy for 20 years of my life and fall off the rails, and all of a sudden there's something significant that happened that would be of interest to the group or organization I'm volunteering with. And if there's a 5-year gap between your checks, you miss that unless it's disclosed by the individual that it happened to. So we're seeing a lot more of that happening, where organizations are having their folks come to us every year now for a criminal record check, as opposed to every 5. So you can imagine
right.
the volume change in that.
It's crucial and important. I think, because we always talk about protecting our young and, making sure they're in a safe environment. Another area that well, it sort of interests me personally because it's for old people, but when I get old, I'll want to know more about it. But, sometimes I see these things about scams and stuff that's targeting, seniors. Is there something you could maybe enlighten me about that?
Sure. So that's really a growing area of concern for all police agencies in BC, not just us here in Nanaimo. Given the changing demographic that we're seeing with the boomers aging, we are seeing a lot more people making efforts to exploit seniors, for lack of a better term. So there's the one component of financial exploitation and abuse of the trust that seniors place in some of these folks, into scams, as you related to, and then another piece of elder abuse that focuses more on physical abuse of vulnerable persons and elderly people. On the scam front, we've done a bunch of work in the past year, Gary O'Brien particularly, who's in our media and community liaison position. Gary's made a real effort to get out and speak to many of the care homes in the area, and groups that are involved with both people in care, but as well as active seniors groups in the community, and talk about some of the scams that we see happening on a regular basis, and actions that people can take to try to prevent or avoid being a victim of these scams. So some of the more popular ones are you see some where people will phone and pretend that they're from Canada Revenue Agency.
Yeah, I had one of those calls.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, and they'll ask for quite pertinent personal information over the phone, and be quite convincing if a person stays on the phone with them of the fact that they are from the CCRA, and that you have a significant amount owing, and they'll ask for bank information or personal information. And it's intimidating. It's intimidating if you're not educated about these types of scams. And people will often, unknowingly, give very important information or bank information, or send money in the mail as a response to a scam like that.
I just told the guy, I said, look, I've had a relationship for so many years with Revenue Canada, I'm sure you have everything you need to know about me. And I hung up the phone.
Exactly. Revenue Canada does not do a business practice of picking up the phone and phoning people to discuss outstanding amounts of taxes owing. And I mean, we know that, but it's an important reminder to see that. That's a popular one. Another one that we see quite often is a grandson, granddaughter type appeal, where somebody will phone to say that they either have them held hostage or that they owe them money and something terrible is going to happen to them if they don't, pick up the phone and provide information or send a bank draft or money order to these people to release their grandson or granddaughter. And again, very scary for somebody who's living alone and elderly and maybe not aware of these types of scams, and on the face of it, they all want to help and do what they think is right at the time.
Well, sometimes it's the hearing. I found, because I was watching a program once, and it was covering the same subject, but how they got the person to say something. They would, if a woman answered the phone, they'd say, "Grandma," and of course then the person would say, "Oh, is that you, Joe or Barry or Mary?" And
then they'll run with it.
Then they go, because now they got the name of a grandchild.
Exactly.
So it was interesting, because that's how they got the person to give up some information. Yeah.
So we see that. We still see a lot of lotto scams, or the phone call that's too good to be true about money they've won or a trip that they've won. And again, engage them. And some of those will take place not only in one phone call, but it'll be a repeat. A repeat phone call over a series of weeks or days, in which they really engage the elderly person who is vulnerable and maybe living alone, and continue to call and build sort of a relationship of trust to the point where suddenly they've got access to banking information. Another one that we see sometimes, I don't see it as much here as I did when I was in Victoria, but contractor scams, where they'll come in and convince the elderly person that they need work done in their yard or in their house that maybe isn't necessarily required, and then overbill for it, or scope a house once they're inside and see what type of valuables are around and almost case it for a future property crime offense.
Did you give people an idea of how they might check out those things, or to confirm whether the person is valid in what they're doing with them in terms of repairs or unnecessary, renovations.
A lot of times we'll convince them we're firm believers in the importance of knowing your neighbors and having support within the community you live in. So that's one option for them, to speak to a neighbor or somebody they trust and have them come and have a second look, or be present. Because sometimes this is legitimate work that's being done, and there's plenty of legitimate contractors out there that do very good work. So we encourage them to involve somebody, either a family member, or, as I said, a neighbor or a close friend in the community, to have a talk about that, and maybe a second set of eyes on those sort of issues.
How about the Better Business Bureau? The only reason I mention them is today I noticed their directory was in the paper today, and they might be a source where people could phone and find out whether the company first is legitimate, and then they can maybe get a second or third quote, or something.
They could do that. They could check with the city in regards to whether or not the company has a business license in town. Is another one as well. They're all important pieces they can take.
Well, I was thinking generally, how can we as citizens sort of assist you in doing your job? I mean, I don't mean every aspect of your job, but to help, fight crime, or to identify things that are going on in the neighborhood that might assist the police in the long run.
So one of the areas which people can really help, not only us but each other, is the Block Watch program, and it's very active in the Nanaimo area. What they do is they have to have at least one annual meeting amongst their group of neighbors to be a part of Block Watch. Obviously, we encourage them to have more than one if they can, but it's a group of neighbors that come together. We come to some of those meetings and do presentations on ways to make your neighborhood safe, or trends that we're seeing in the community, and people join it voluntarily. And in most cases, there's also there's an incentive as well. If you're a member of Block Watch, or your block is part of that, there's incentives in regards to reductions on your house insurance as well, because there's evidence that proves that if you're in a Block Watch neighborhood, your chances of being a victim of property crime are lower, because your neighbors are watching out for you, and you're doing the same for them when they're away. And when we talk about, just going back to this piece on seniors and elder abuse, the other piece that I find really important in this, aside, most people's motivation for joining a Block Watch is around property crime and keeping an eye on your property and that it's safe. But I think there's huge value from a social perspective and connectedness perspective in knowing your neighbors and having some sort of social engagement there, and importance in knowing them. And when we have seniors in our neighborhoods, that's even more important. Somebody to check in to make sure they're well.
Well,
put the crime piece aside and just worrying about wellness and health and safety, and somebody to check on them if you haven't.
I live in a nice neighborhood. I mean, I've only been here a little over 3 years, but we've had so many social gatherings amongst our neighbors. One will hold a barbecue, and then somebody else holds. So we got to know each other, and I found that was important, because you did get a sense of who was elderly and if there were health concerns, and you look for them. You're right. If you're aware of it and flagged with it, but people. I belong to the neighborhood association in my community, and there's a number of them in Nanaimo. See, that might be a link too. I think like this, the neighborhood watch stuff.
So we have some very strong neighborhood associations in Nanaimo. One other way that we find that people can help us is we have volunteer programs within the detachment, where people can come out and join and help us with crime prevention work. They do parking lot patrols. They do some harbor watch. Help us with community events and spreading out crime prevention information. We also have an auxiliary constable program where they get some enhanced training from us in regards to some of the duties we do and some of the laws we deal with. And they help us on crime prevention efforts as well. And I think the most important thing is that people phone us.
Oh, nice.
When they see something happening or something that's causing them concern in a neighborhood, that they let us know about it. That's really the first step and one of the most important steps. And some people are quicker to call than others, but it's difficult for us to be aware of an issue or an incident in a neighborhood if people don't take the time to phone.
I know people say, I didn't want to get involved. Like I say, well, we can. I'm sure they could be left anonymous unless something developed from their tip. And because that's always a concern when people say, well, you know, I don't want to get involved, but somebody should do something, you know. That's.
And I mean, there's an avenue through Crime Stoppers to deal with that issue as well. And if people have serious concerns about that, or worried about their own personal safety, if they report, say, a more serious offense, or something where they're worried about personal harm, if they were found to have been the person that reported it, then Crime Stoppers is an excellent avenue to do that keeps their tip anonymous, but at least alerts us to the issue or maybe where we should be looking. You know, may very well be an incident that we've been looking into for days, months, and maybe we're missing something there, and somebody has that valuable piece of information, but as you said, it is concerned for safety concerns or something else. Crime Stoppers protects their anonymity. We don't find out who they are, yet it provides us with some very valuable information on where to look, and a lot of serious crimes in the community get solved through Crime Stoppers tips.
Well, you know, it's just a personal testimony from I've had two brief encounters with members of your force. Driving, you know, I was driving and I got stopped because my license tag was out of date by a couple of days. And it was really, I mean, I got such great assistance and help from the officer who stopped me, you know, and I was pleased, just parked the car, let me go get it. You know, fortunately there was an insurance place close by, went, got the insurance, and that was the end. I mean, I got a ticket, you know, but I could have gotten a heavier ticket, or if I had gotten in an accident, I would have no insurance.
Exactly.
You know, but it was just his mannerism, and that was like a breath of fresh air. No, it was like I was talking to a friend, you know what I mean, who was concerned that I had, you know, done something that I should have been more aware of. That's all. Yeah.
No, that's good.
Yeah, but they say both of them were traffic kind of things, because I kind of did a rolling thing one day at a stop sign, but instead of coming to a full stop. But is there anything else you would like to tell us about things that we as the community maybe could do in Nanaimo?
I think, as I said, the volunteering is important. The neighborhood engagement, I think, is really important in knowing your neighbors, knowing what's going on in your neighborhoods, what your kids are up to. Right. We're seeing one thing, you know, I just met with my youth officers this afternoon to discuss planning for the upcoming year and initiatives that they're involved in. And one thing that they notice is an increase in online activity amongst very young children, grade 5, grade 6 that we're seeing. And in the past, we've targeted a lot of our prevention work towards, say, high school, junior high kids, thinking that it was more of an issue around dating and what they're seeing in the internet and respectful relationships. And they're telling me now, these officers who are in the schools every day, that age group that is engaging in the internet and seeing, you know, pornography and other things that are affecting their behavior is happening now at a much, much younger age. So they're having those discussions now with children that are in grade 6, grade 7, and they feel that that's where they need to get the message out to them now. So I think as parents, you know, it's important that we realize that we need to have some of these discussions with our children as well, and be aware of what they're doing online. Yeah, you know,
that's grade 6 seems to be a pivotal grade in the education system. You know, I mean, there's a few studies I read over the years that kind of indicate that if you can get to those kids at that particular age, you can prevent a lot of negative things from going on.
You can if you engage with them long before. Obviously, we engage with them on a criminal matter or anything of that nature. If we can get some of this messaging out to them earlier, and the other thing that the officers are telling me is you would be surprised at how much they do know and how inquisitive are. They want to know what the right thing to do is, and we need to be alive to that and be out there, you know, having these discussions with them. Along with obviously their teachers and other mentors in their lives or adults in their lives, but it's a wake-up call of how much time they spend online and what they're seeing and learning online. And a lot of what we're seeing in policing now, not only in regards to the youth, but when we look at we've had a recent increase in some of our violent crime stats in Nanaimo, and we dug down deeper into that to try to figure out what is driving that, because we've had great successes on other fronts, on property crime and others, but violent crime still seems to be spiking gradually here. And when we looked further into it, a lot of what was driving that is harassment issues. So intimidation, harassment, much of which was happening online. amongst adults and seniors as well as youth, which is interesting because you think of violent crime, that's not something that rises to the top of mind. You're thinking about assaults and more violent incidents. But that is part of what's captured in it, and we're seeing a lot more exploitation of either people sending pictures online that they wouldn't have normally sent, or they assume that they're going to be deleted and never brought back again, and they're being used to intimidate people, to threaten them. Messaging online of a threatening nature because you're behind a keyboard as opposed to something you'd never say to somebody's face.
Anonymous.
It is.
It is. A little bit, because you don't have to, like now you and I are sitting talking face to face, but if I was emailing you and I was hostile towards you, I could say, and that's an interesting
so we're seeing a real increase in that area, and it's not once we drill down further into it, we're seeing that increase across the province in the harassment and the online activity and how that's contributing to what we have to investigate. So it's presented challenges for us as well as far as training our officers adequately and getting them the level of training to understand how to do some of these online investigations and what a big component it's become of the work that we do on a daily basis. So we're finding now we have to do more training with our officers on not only doing the investigations, but getting the technological capability to download information off many of these devices. A lot of our crimes now involve either the seizure of a phone that has relevant evidence on it, or an iPad or a laptop, and each of those has to be examined. Whereas in the past, it was a written letter or it was a statement about somebody had said something to another. We didn't have this technological aspect, which really changes dynamics.
You've just, amazing the volume of police work. I used to get my knowledge of police work off of television. You solved everything in a half hour or maybe 60 minutes, right? And you've just opened up a thing of, it's like I can't think of anything that you don't touch in your day-to-day activities as police officers.
That's one of the things I think that attracts many of us to the career. And when we're talking to people that are interested in a career in policing or even thinking about it, those of us that have been doing it for over 20 years speak to that. That's one of the first things you'll hear come out of most people's mouths when they're talking about why they enjoy still being policemen after that many years. Is because you go to work, you have no idea what you're going to do that day. Like you can have the best laid plans about here's my day and here's where I'm going to be at these different points in time of my day or meetings I have, and that can all fly out the window.
Sure.
And it does. There's 3 meetings I was supposed to be in this afternoon that all got canceled at last minute because of incidents we're dealing with in the community, and people can't come to the meeting because of this, that, or the other thing. But it keeps people engaged, it keeps you fresh, you're challenged, and you see all sides of the human spirit.
Well, we got about 4 minutes left before they cut us off here. Is there anything that you would like to emphasize before we have to give up the podium here?
Some of the things, as I said, I want people to be aware of some of the trends we're seeing and some of the things they can do, obviously, to protect themselves and their neighbors in regards to some of the safety issues we discussed earlier. And I think the other really important point is for people to be aware of the hazards of some of the online activity we can engage in at all ages. People get victimized through frauds online as well, but also parents having discussion about online activity with their kids and just monitoring what it is, who they're associating with online. And what it is they're talking about.
Well, I'd like people to feel comfortable that even if they don't think it's a police matter, but it's sort of borderline, to pick up the phone,
for sure,
give a call, and say, look, there's this and this, and I'm sure, because I know from my experience, I get a response. Somebody will give me a direction or give me a help, and I think
give you some guidance. That's the one thing that we cringe when we hear is I didn't want to bother them. We work 24/7. We have people that answer the phone 24/7. That's our job, so don't worry about bothering us.
And this is the kind of thing. I don't know. Does Nanaimo have a Police Appreciation Day thing here or some?
We do an open house once every 2 years. We started it almost 2 years ago. We had our first one. where we have a variety of displays at the end of Police Week, and we do it at the detachment and offer some tours. But we have different sections set up with tables where we engage with the community about what we do in these different units you and I discussed earlier. And we had a great turnout at our last one, and we're doing another one this spring in the middle of May.
This May.
So we'll do another open house, and it's a great way for the community to get a sense to interact with the guys outside of a...
Do any recruitment at that
Oh,
time?
of course we do.
I mean, not me. I'm not thinking of my own self. I'm a little beyond the pale now about that. So but I think if young people see some of the interesting aspects of policing,
Yes.
it's not something they may have even had their mind turned to.
No, and we bring in, our recruiting staff comes in every couple months to Nanaimo from Vancouver to talk about recruiting in the RCMP and people that are interested in joining. And if there are people out there that are interested, I would highly encourage them to give us a call, and any of us are happy to talk more to them about our career.
Well, because I mean, it's like the police officers that I know, like personally myself, they're like any of your neighbors. You know what I mean? Like if they're in uniform, they stand out. More so. But normally they're just the average ordinary.
You see some at the grocery store.
Yeah,
but we buy groceries like everybody else and go to Costco.
But I think that helps create a positive relationship between the police force and the community, because I found that a lot of people have a misconception of how they can interact and relate to the local police community. That and some of it, unfortunately, is television. I think affects that, and sometimes the American portrayal of stuff affects us, and we have a completely different approach to, I think, relationship with the police.
We police by consent. We need the support of the public to be their police service, and we work to earn that support.
Well, that seems our time is coming to an end, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to invite the public out there, if you have any suggestions or ideas for things you'd like to see discussed on the show. I mean, sorry, on that's another show. We don't deal with that on Head On. The show is something for people who have nothing better to do. But for Head On, this is where we want you to give us a call. Call Melissa and let her know that you've got a great idea you'd like to have us for discussion.